I asked my boyfriend Ethan. Your brother is a psychology expert. What do you two usually talk about? Do you ever feel like he sees right through you?
The smile on Ethan's face stalled for a moment. He set down the chopsticks he'd been using to serve her, looked at her, thought carefully about her question. He didn't want to give a careless answer.
We talk about everything, from good books we've read, to new movies, to problems at work. When I was little, I relied on him a lot. Talking with him always felt relaxing.
He paused, considered her sharper follow-up question.
As for being seen through?
He repeated it softly, then looked down and smiled. The smile carried a gentle nostalgia and complete trust.
Rather than seen through, I'd say understood.
He raised his eyes, clear and sincere.
He's very perceptive. Sometimes, before I even figure out what to say, he already senses how I'm feeling. But it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It's more like, you know, there's someone who always understands you, so you don't need to pretend around him. It's a very safe feeling.
After saying this, he looked at her with worry and apology.
Are you still thinking about what happened on Sunday? It was my fault. I made you uncomfortable. My brother, he just cares about me too much. He means no harm.
I asked. You talk about everything. Does your brother ever talk to you about his patients?
Ethan froze. The warm atmosphere in the private room seemed to solidify in an instant. The joy on his face slowly faded, replaced by a very serious expression. He set down the chopsticks he'd been using, looked at her. The silly happiness from before was completely gone.
No.
His answer was absolute, without hesitation.
Never.
He added, as if emphasizing an indisputable fact. He explained further.
He might tell me he had a tiring day or ran into a particularly difficult case, but what he talks about are his own feelings. About his clients, who they are, what they said, he never says a word. That's his principle.
He looked into her eyes, his gaze filled with complete trust in his brother and confusion about why she'd asked.
It's his most important professional bottom line, just like I'd never show someone an author's unpublished manuscript.
After he said this, the room fell quiet again. He looked at her. After a few seconds, he asked in a lighter, more tentative voice.
Lana, why are you asking this? Did he make you feel uncomfortable on Sunday?
I shook my head and said, No, I was just curious. I paused, reassured him. Sunday's over. You don't need to keep worrying about it. I have no issues with him. Or with you.
When Ethan heard her words, he relaxed completely. The warm yellow light in the private room seemed to soften even more because of what she said. The stone that had been weighing on his heart for several days was finally, gently, completely lifted, replaced by a flood of gratitude and relief.
I'm so glad you feel that way. Hearing you say that, I really feel at ease now.
He lowered his head, a bit embarrassed, annoyed at himself for how nervously he'd been pressing.
I'm sorry. I was overthinking. Always afraid you'd dwell on things. Afraid you'd feel wronged.
He looked up again, tried to bring the atmosphere back to its earlier warmth. He picked up the serving chopsticks, carefully placed a glistening piece of char siu in her bowl.
Okay, let's not talk about unhappy things anymore. Try this char siu. See if you like it.
After dinner, Ethan drove me back to the dorm. My gaze swept across his lips. Noticing, I want to kiss him. Not because I love him, but because I want to further possess him, consume him, carve my mark into the deepest part of his heart. If I were the old me full of hostility, I would do it, completely and utterly conquer this person, make him offer up his whole self, then quickly grow bored, leave him. Now, I've escaped that controlling hellhole. The hostility isn't as strong. That intense desire to conquer and possess, the kind that used to flare up in relationships, seems to have faded a lot. Right now, I don't really have the energy for it either. And I treasure my therapeutic relationship with Dr. Adler. Ethan is important to him. In our last session, Dr. Adler was already tolerant. I should probably be smart about this. Shouldn't push further with Ethan. shouldn't ruin things with Dr. Adler beyond repair. I looked away, said, "Good night."
Ethan pulled the car smoothly to a stop under the streetlight by the dorm building, turned off the engine. Inside the small space of the car, only their quiet breathing remained, and the distant sound of insects outside. The joy and ease from dinner had fermented in his heart into something warmer, more intense. He didn't want the night to end. He unbuckled his seatbelt, turned to look at Lana. The dim streetlight filtered through the window, softly tracing the outline of her profile. He couldn't look away. Then, he saw her gaze, sweeping past his eyes, landing on his lips, and lingering, just for a second. In that instant, he clearly heard his own heart skip a beat. The air in the car seemed to be sucked out, then refilled with something tense, something sweet with anticipation. His breath felt hot. For him, this was something entirely new, completely unfamiliar, yet something he'd rehearsed 1,000 times in his dreams. The blood in his body was shouting, pushing him to do something. Driven by a kind of instinct he'd never felt before, he leaned barely, imperceptibly just a little closer. That's when she looked away. That soft, floating good night, instantly popping the balloon he'd spent the whole evening filling with happiness, with courage. His forward motion froze midway. The burning heat that had just flooded his face cooled rapidly, leaving only a blank confusion, and a sharp, fine sting deep in his chest, the pain of being left empty-handed.
Did I misread things? Was I too eager? Did I offend her?
These thoughts flashed through his mind. The final one overpowered everything else, a deep wave of self-blame. He quickly straightened up, put the distance back between them. He cleared his dry throat, tried to make his voice sound the way it usually did to hide the sudden loss.
Good night,
he said quietly. His eyes fell to the steering wheel, didn't dare look at her again.
I nodded, got out of the car, went back to the dorm. Noticing, I just held back a dark thought.
Ethan sat alone in the driver's seat. He didn't move for a long time. The soft click of the car door closing was like a switch, sealing off the inside from the outside. Out there, the living, breathing air of the campus night. In here, just him. And the deepening silence. He watched Lana's back as she walked into the dorm building. Not until the glass door closed behind her, swallowing her figure completely, did he slowly pull his gaze back. He lowered his eyes, stared at his empty hands. That wild heartbeat from a moment ago still echoed in his chest, but the burning heat had already been replaced by an icy confusion.
Did I misread things?
That look, the one that lingered on his lips, it was so focused. He'd thought it was a clear, silent invitation. He'd lived 25 years. This was the first time he'd gathered that kind of courage. The first time he'd allowed himself to be driven by pure instinct. And it had just been his wishful thinking.
Did I scare her? Was leaning in too eager? Too forward?
A deep wave of regret surged up. His cheeks burned, not from excitement anymore, from humiliation. He gripped the steering wheel hard. The cold touch helped calm his chaotic thoughts. Just a little. His brother's words echoed in his ears again.
When you're running toward that light with everything you have, watch your step.
Had he fallen? Just now, in that too eager anticipation. Had he already taken a hard fall and pushed her away? He slumped back against the seat, looked up at the street lamp, glowing a hazy yellow in the night. He didn't dare think about anything, couldn't think about anything. He just sat there, waiting quietly. Waiting for the message that might or might not come. The one from her, letting him know she was safe.
Tuesday afternoon again, my regular session time. I summarized the week's noticing for Dr. Adler, including my restraint outside the dorm. But I didn't mention the thought. I treasure my relationship with Dr. Adler. I should probably be smart about this. Shouldn't push further with Ethan. Shouldn't ruin things with Dr. Adler beyond repair. Because I felt that saying something like, "You matter more to me than Ethan. I don't want to lose you because of him," to Dr. Adler's face would be intrusive and awkward.
Dr. Adler listened quietly until Lana finished. He didn't interrupt once, just looked at her with full attention. The teacup in front of him still steamed gently, just like last week. After she stopped talking, he didn't speak right away. He leaned back slightly against the dark sofa, as if digesting and organizing all the precious fragments of noticing she'd just shared. His gaze was calm, like a deep lake without ripples, reflecting all of her honesty. After a moment, he spoke slowly, his voice steady and clear, carrying a solemn affirmation.
Thank you for being willing to tell me all of this.
He continued,
What you did this week is exactly the noticing we discussed last time. You not only did it, you did it with remarkable depth and honesty. You saw yourself going with the flow. You saw yourself pulling up surface emotions. You also saw, deeper still, that dark, destructive thought. That takes immense courage.
He leaned forward slightly, hands folded on the table, his gaze sharpened on her.
Of all these moments of noticing, the one that happened outside the dorm is the most important turning point.
His voice was soft, but every word was certain.
You described that thought, I want to kiss him, not out of love, but to possess, then discard. That thought is a powerful echo of your old behavioral patterns. In the past, when that thought appeared, it would have swept over you like an unstoppable flood, pushing you straight into action.
He paused.
But this time,
His tone gained a layer of professional gravity, the kind that comes from witnessing a major breakthrough.
between the thought and the action, a gap appeared. A precious gap created by your noticing.
He continued,
You stood in that gap. You watched the thought. And then you made a completely new choice. You chose restraint.
He looked into her eyes, helping her understand the weight of that act.
This was your first time actively, forcefully dropping an anchor in the middle of that river of drifting. This is significant. It means you're no longer just controlled by your inner impulses. You're taking back your own agency.
He went quiet for a moment, let the affirmation fully settle. Then, in a gently probing tone, he asked a deeper question.
I'd like to invite you to go back to that moment with me, back into that gap, to take another look. When you decided to drop that anchor, when you chose restraint, what gave you the strength to do it?
I said, because my hostility isn't as strong now, I don't really want to hurt people, and also, I don't really have the energy.
Dr. Adler leaned back in the sofa, his posture unchanged. He listened to Lana finish, his eyes behind the glasses watching her with full attention. No judgment, only complete acceptance and deep thought. The steam from his teacup had grown thin.
Both points you mentioned are very important.
He spoke, voice steady and calm, like confirming a key discovery.
Let's look at the first one. My hostility isn't as strong. I don't really want to hurt people.
He echoed her words. His tone carried professional affirmation.
This tells me something profound is shifting inside you. That version of you, the one who had to armor herself in thorns to resist harm, now, for the first time, seems to have a small crack of space, to feel something softer. That thought, I don't want to hurt others, is like a tiny, fragile seedling growing in frozen earth. You noticed it. That's a remarkable insight.
He paused briefly, giving that seedling room to grow.
Now let's look at the second one, not having the energy.
He continued, eyes still on her.
That sounds like the exhausted soldier we talked about last week. When the drums of battle mode start pounding again, possess, conquer, destroy, your exhausted body, out of pure survival instinct, says no. From that angle, this not having energy, in that moment, actually became a shield protecting you.
He summarized.
So, one force was a new seed of kindness sprouting inside you. The other was your body sending a self-preservation signal. Together, push and pull, they made you stop. Choose restraint.
He finished, then leaned forward slightly. That small movement closed the distance between them and added weight to what came next.
I'd like to invite you to go back to that moment with me once more.
His voice was softer than before.
Beyond those two forces that stopped you, I have another curiosity. Restraint itself is an active act, one that carries intention.
He continued.
When that old version of you was trying to break through, beyond not wanting to hurt and not having energy, was there, inside you, a tiny voice saying, there's something important here, something I don't want that impulse to destroy?
I was silent for a moment, hesitated. Then, haltingly spoke. I've heard that if a patient has a personal entanglement with their therapist, the therapist will transfer them to someone else. I don't want to be handed off. You and we've finally built such a good foundation. I added carefully. I could break up with Ethan.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss Dr. Adler's next session.